Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Longhorn Weekly as we talk Texas Longhorns basketball. My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us. Obviously, still the Longhorns without head coach Shaka Smart as per his announcement last week, of course, being in isolation following his COVID-19 positive test. And so Shaka unavailable to coach the team in that difficult 80-79 home loss to Oklahoma, but we're pleased to have Longhorns associate head coach KT Turner, who was the acting head coach for that game and is the acting head coach right now for the program, joining us as well. KT, let me start off by getting you to give folks just a little bit of an update. We were talking about right before we took air here about how Shaka is feeling, because clearly a lot of folks have been reaching out to you, to the program. I've heard it on my end as well. Folks are wanting to know how the head coach is holding up.
Yes, I talked to him this morning, and it's the best I've heard him sound since he's had it. So he's feeling a lot better. I mean, he's starting to be more of himself. He's said he's just battling up, and his energy's coming back. That's how I know he's starting to be back more like himself. But this morning was the best that I've heard him sound. Last couple of days he was down though.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Obviously, that he's doing better as well. I want to give folks a little bit of context about what this program has been through, even through the last couple of weeks, inclusive of the Kansas State game and the 10 days in between, and then obviously the Oklahoma game, because I understand how folks would kind of look at it, look at the schedule and say, okay, there was 10 days off. They didn't play game. Then they come back. They had to play the game with 8 scholarship players. And then due to the foul difficulty and fouling out at the end, they're ending the game with 5 available scholarship players as well. Those kinds of things. Those are the black and white numbers that folks can look at and make reference to. But there's so much beneath the surface. There's so much context as to what this team was having to go through. And I want to give you an opportunity to start off really going into the Kansas State game, which was the win. That was difficult enough to start with, given the not having 3 players available, but even the fact with the Iowa State and TCU games getting pushed back, had Iowa State and TCU not made that announcement, perhaps an announcement would have come from UT, because I know you and Coach Smart and the rest of the staff, everybody was dealing with the difficulty of the cases even back then. So if you can, KT, kind of walk us back through that, starting around the Kansas State game and leading up to where you were having to go into the Oklahoma game as shorthanded as you did.
Yes, one, we're a no excuse program. I mean, we're not the only program in the country going through this. A lot of teams are going through it, but we definitely don't want to make excuses. The hardest part has been practice. The last 2 weeks, we haven't had guys. I mean, we've had 6 guys a lot of the times. A couple of times it was 3 or 4 players just in practice, so we're doing a lot of individuals. But the hardest part has been practice, and then getting guys back once they're getting back, like the conditioning part of it. Like Matt Coleman came back and had 1 practice the day before the game before he played Oklahoma, which is, he takes 7-10 days off. That's tough, just from a conditioning standpoint. And practice has just been, our staff has been really good with practice, because it's been difficult to try to practice when you don't have 10 guys. You can't go up and down. A lot of 3-on-3, going through stuff, 5-on-0, a lot of shooting and trying to keep guys' heart rate up and conditioning good.
That's something I think also the fans don't understand as well. And again, for those who didn't know it, there was a point, and you kind of made reference to it, KT, last week during the open time in between the Kansas State game and the Oklahoma game, where you had a grand total of 3 scholarship players, 3 scholarship student athletes available. And then as the week progressed, then it got up to 5, 6, and then obviously you got to 8 by the time you had the 1 practice on Monday, the day before the game, the only practice you had where you had the 8 on the floor as well. First of all, for folks who don't know, what can you do? You mentioned individuals. What can 3 guys, scholarship, and then of course you have walk-ons as well, but what can you do in that kind of shorthanded situation with what you have to deal with?
A lot of shooting, a lot of trying to just get up and down and conditioning. But that part's difficult, but just a lot of shooting and conditioning with that.
You know, another thing that comes to mind about this, you mentioned Matt, who mentioned once that he was able to go back out there, the conditioning part of it. Again, something that I'm not sure that fans totally understand because you think of basketball practice and you think of games, but there's so much more that goes into it, the conditioning element, to let folks know how it works, KT, with regard to what they're missing. They're missing more than just the running up and down the floor in practice. Can you tell folks a little bit about, the other elements of what makes a basketball player game ready in a game week, the types of things that guys like Matt were missing out on until he could even get back on the floor on Monday?
Yeah, and Matt's one of the most well-conditioned players that I've coached. And the day he came back, I mean, I stopped practice at one point because he was so tired because I didn't want to kill him. But and it's just, and like you say, it's a lot more than just the conditioning part, like the rhythm. Basketball is a rhythm sport, and you definitely have to have that rhythm and game feel. Like sometimes you can get on a treadmill or go running, and but it's a lot different than a basketball game, up and down, having that rhythm of shooting and dribbling and playing defense and boxing out and all those type of things. But you definitely have to have a rhythm to play, and that's another thing we're concerned about with guys is just coming back and you haven't shot a basketball in 10 days. I mean, you're expected to play, so it's tough.
Is it also difficult for you as a coach and for the staff? I mean, Coach Barry and Coach Had, and then Nevada Smith being involved in helping you out as well. That to know where to take the foot off the gas, so to speak, with regard to practice. Like you said, you stopped it at one point because you could tell that Matt was pretty gassed, pretty tired out. Trying to find the gauge of where a depleted group, a smaller group, can give you what you need and what they need to try to become game ready, but by the same token, not completely spinning what they do have before you even get to the game itself the following Tuesday.
Yes. Well, first off, the staff has been phenomenal. I mean, they've been absolutely phenomenal, all of them. And that part of the practice, like drawing up a practice plan, like the day Matt came back, we scratched a lot of stuff off of that practice plan that we thought we could have gotten to, but we didn't. So it's more just managing practice as it's going. You're taking things out, adding something here. A lot of water breaks, but it's as a staff, we've done. I feel like we've done a great job of just managing that part of it.
KT, how important is it also during this time to get meaningful contributions, and you do all season long anyway, but meaningful contributions from your walk-ons, the other guys who are helping you out in the practice floor, since you were reduced in terms of the number of scholarship players that you had. You were, like we said, down to 3 for a good chunk of last week before you could slowly ramp it up. So having guys like Blake Nevins, having those guys to be able to give you what you need to help balance it out a little bit, how important were their contributions during this just completed week?
Oh, they're huge. I mean, because like a guy like Blake, I mean, he's a good athlete. He can. It's like playing against another player that they can really play. So those guys are definitely huge, and they have high IQs. I mean, we're throwing them in. Hey, we need you to run this stuff they've never done, and they pick it up really quick. We have some good walk-ons with high IQs were good athletes in high school.
And guys who probably played it at a pretty high level in high school, so they pretty readily understand and accept. They've been with the program for a while anyway, but guys
Yeah.
who understand exactly what you and the staff are asking of them.
Yes, they're great with preparation work. I mean, they're unbelievable with helping us prepare for games, especially like you said right now. With
Well,
Blake with Blake today, I mean, he gives us 10, so he's huge today.
yeah, no doubt about that. And I would imagine also, uh, KT, that those guys understand that. Not only your walk-ons, but the few scholarship guys you had available at the time. They understand that everybody kind of has to work together. I've heard you talk about it. I heard Coach Barry talk about it last week. Shaka obviously talks about it a lot, and that's being connected and the connectivity. You have to have that, not just in games that folks think about, but you have to have it in practice, especially when your numbers are down.
Oh, no doubt. That's a huge part of our program is being connected, and it's a huge part of the game. And the walk-ons, I mean, they're no different than our guys. Like we treat them the same. they're part of our team, and they're a big part of our team.
All right, coming up, we'll take a look back at the matchup for Texas against Oklahoma, the most unusual set of circumstances that the Longhorns were dealing with in the contest on Tuesday night at the Irwin Center. This, of course, is Longhorn Weekly, normally with head coach Shaka Smart, associate head coach KT Turner with us during this portion of the program. It's presented by Pluckers, seen by those of you watching on the Longhorn Network and heard all across the state of Texas and the great Southwest on the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield IMG College. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly, presented by Pluckers, as we continue our conversation with Longhorns associate head coach KT Turner. Okay, so KT, we kind of set the stage for everybody, understanding what you and the staff were dealing with coming out of the Kansas State game when you didn't have Greg Brown available, didn't have Brock Cunningham available, didn't have Kai Jones available. In fact, the totality of the available scholarship players at one point during the week was down to 3 players, got it up to 5, and then eventually to 8 by the one practice you had the day before this red-hot Oklahoma Sooners team came to town. And then as you went back to work, you got ready for the game on Tuesday night, knowing you would have Kai back on the floor and also being able not only to take the floor there and having Greg Brown back as well, still without Brock, and then obviously without Courtney Ramey and without Jericho Sims as well. So with all of that in front of you and getting ready to take on Oklahoma, what was the message to the guys about the plan, how you would deal with this being a shorthanded, given how guard-heavy Oklahoma is and how guard proficient the Sooners have been during this recent win streak, how you planned to deal with it? What was the message like to the guys and to the coaching staff on how you devised the plan on how to go up against Oklahoma?
Just stay together, do everything together, do it as a team. We told them we're gonna make a lot of mistakes. You've got to play through them, but do it as a team. Come back as a team, fight as a team. And we came out a little lethargic in that first half, and I was really proud of how they fought in that second half because I felt like they were together and they were connected in that second half.
You mentioned the first half, and Oklahoma jumps to the lead, but then it went back and forth for a bit. And then you mentioned the lethargic nature of thing. When you're coaching at that point, given the circumstances you were dealing with, was the concern about where the physical energy was or the mental and emotional part of that? Because you kind of stayed the course through that with what was available, took one timeout to try to stem the tide, and then it looked like the guys kind of found themselves a little bit before the half was done.
Yeah, to start the game, I felt like we came out very energetic, and then we hit a little roadblock. And I just wanted to stay with it because I knew Oklahoma was going to make runs, and I knew we were going to make runs, and I definitely wanted to save a timeout for later in the half. But going in, we as a staff, we knew that Oklahoma was going to make runs, and we were going to make runs, and I felt like we did.
Then you get into the second half, and Oklahoma runs it out to a couple of times a double-digit lead, had 11 points at a couple of times, but consistently in the 7 to 9 range there. And I thought the way that you and the staff managed the timeout situation, working it around the dead ball official timeouts as well. Lon Kruger was forced to use a couple of timeouts when you made runs as well. And I would imagine also some of that is strategic, isn't it, KT, trying to keep guys fresh with how you're trying to attack this game in segments to keep this thing manageable?
Yes. In the second half, I felt like we played a lot tougher. And when we got down, during timeouts, we just kept telling the guys, hey, we got to get it back on the defensive end. We're going to be fine offensively, but 4 minutes at a time, we gotta get it back defensively. We got to do a great job of just inching back, but it starts with defense. We have to have a defensive mindset. And I felt like they did, and with the timeouts, especially at the end, we called one to set up our press because we had guys out of position, that don't know that position on our press. So we wanted to make sure they were in position to get in our press defense. And which
The other thing,
defense
and the other thing, KT, that really comes to mind that was noteworthy of this game, fouls and the foul difficulty, obviously. And you and I talked about it after the game. I asked how difficult it is for the guys, especially a smaller group, to adjust to the way the game is called and to be able to do that. I thought it was pretty telling when Matt was in his media availability, talked about he didn't have his conditioning where he wanted to be, and that forced him out of position, committing fouls a couple of times that he might not otherwise do. Was that something you noticed with the totality of the guys that you had there, that maybe that the fact that they couldn't get on the floor until you got them on the floor for the combined practice on Monday, that shows up in the stat category of things like fouls?
Yes, without a doubt. And Matt's usually really, really good defensively without fouling. And Oklahoma, give them credit. I mean, coming in, we knew they're one of the best teams in the country at drawing fouls, and they did a great job of attacking us and making us foul. But I felt like when Matt gets his conditioning, he'll be fine with that.
Okay, so you get down to the final moments of the game. You were down 78-70. You score 7 unanswered. You pulled it within a point. Oklahoma hits a couple of free throws. You come back, hit a couple of free throws. It's a 1-point ball game. And take us through it. First of all, you've got a foul at that point, and then get the break because Jalen Hill, I don't think he intended to miss the first one. We knew he was trying to miss the second one and didn't catch the rim, which gave you the inbounds. But how about taking us through, like you said, the setup, the strategy that you wanted before even you got the ball back, the inbounds, when you were going to get the ball back when you were down a point there, and what you had to do defensively?
Like I said, just really chipping away each possession, each defensive possession at a time. Uh, and setting up our press, we wanted to try to get a steal or a quick foul, and then we wanted to, if he would have missed that second free throw, we just wanted to bring it down and spread it out, because like you said, they didn't have any more timeouts. But when he made it, we had to call a timeout and set something up.
And then after you get the ball off of the miss, and you've got to go with the full court down there, and at that point, you got Blake inbounding the basketball. We talked about this on the postgame show. You felt the best opportunity was try to get it in the hands of someone in the front court where you'd have enough time at 2.3 to have a dribble or two to get a higher percentage shot than just inbounding at the three-quarter court and perhaps launching from midcourt or something.
Yeah, we felt like we had the better athletes. We had Kai Jones on the floor, and I didn't see anybody on the floor that could out-jump him. So we wanted to try to throw it up in the air, let him go up and be an athlete and get a catch. And we ran guys down the side. He'd either have 2 options to pass to them or turn, and he'd have 2 dribbles to get a shot off.
And with guys fouled out, you had Blake inbounding on the baseline. That's something he's done for you before. So, I mean, you were comfortable with having him inbound the basketball for you as well. And they weren't guarding him. It was just a matter of trying to connect that pass, which unfortunately didn't happen. But you're comfortable with him inbounding in that situation, right?
Yes, in practice, we actually work on that, and he's the best one that throws it every single time. So we were definitely comfortable in it and believed in him to make that pass. But like you said, didn't connect it.
You, as you pointed out, you're not in the business for moral victories. It's an 80-79 loss. It's a disappointing defeat. Nevertheless, how impressed were you and the staff with the resiliency and the effort of your guys, given the hand they were dealt, to be able not to cash it in, to work as hard as they did, to actually put themselves in a position to have a shot to win the game there in the final seconds?
Yeah, I think it really shows to what this team can be if they come and fight with that kind of fight for 40 minutes. We can accomplish some great things. We're going through a rough patch right now, but once we get through it, we're going to learn some things from this. And one thing we've learned is that we really have fight in us, and we're going to come out better.
Okay, Longhorns will go back on the road to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. Want to remind folks the Texas Farm Bureau Insurance is proud to offer its members 2 free tickets to select Longhorn men's or women's basketball games this season. Hopefully, we'll all have the opportunity very soon to see the Longhorns again in person at the Irwin Center. Visit texassports.com/Texas Farm Bureau for details on how to request tickets. Up next, as we continue with KT Turner, we'll take a look at the opponent for this week, the Kentucky Wildcats, when Longhorn Weekly continues in a moment. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly, presented by Pluckers, and joined by Longhorns Associate Head Coach KT Turner. First of all, let me get your thoughts. What did you think when Royce Ham knocked down that three-pointer? It kind of took us all a little bit by surprise.
When he shot it, it was right by me, and I'm in my head. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And when he made it, he turned and winked at me. And I just couldn't do nothing but smile. But it was a huge shot for us with Royce Ham making that.
No doubt. All right, let's talk a little bit about this Kentucky Wildcats team, and for folks who are used to seeing what John Calipari has, this is a little bit different than what's going on normally with Kentucky. They've had some struggles this year, but Kentucky always has incredibly talented players. They had a very competitive game against perhaps the hottest team in the country, one of the hottest teams in the country in Alabama, before falling to the Crimson Tide the other night. They had previously beaten LSU. What about your thoughts on the Wildcats when you first look at them on video?
They're very, very athletic, talented, very good defensive team. They're 7th in the country in block shots, and I want to say 15th in the country in overall defense. They're a really good defensive team, but they're extremely talented and extremely athletic. They do a great job of getting to the offensive boards. We got to do a great job of boxing those guys out.
When they is the biggest notable thing that you have seen, KT, with regard to the fact that they've had some struggles this season, is simply because they are as young as they are. We're used to seeing Coach Cal routinely lose 3, 4, 5 guys to the NBA draft in a given year, and then kind of reloading. And that's kind of difficult when you're first starting out with a bunch of young guys on a year in, year out basis, isn't it?
Yeah, they're a little young, but Cal's one of the best in the country doing that. He is the best. So he knows what he's doing for sure, and he's definitely gonna have those guys ready to play Saturday, and I know they're gonna be by the end of the season. They're gonna be a good team.
When you look at them, is there's a guy or two on there where you say, hey, we got to make sure we're doing a good job on him and closing him out, or is it just the totality of what you're seeing from their group?
I think it's overall. We got to do a great job overall collectively of guarding them as a group. They on any given night they have a guy that can step up and score 20 points. They have great talent, so we got to do as a collective group. We got to guard them.
You know, another thing that comes to mind, KT, is that this SEC Big 12 Challenge happens obviously in the middle of college basketball season. I know some folks are thinking, man, with games being postponed and some being canceled, is this a good thing to go ahead and play a non-conference game at this point of the season in the middle of the conference battles and battling COVID? Do you look at it also? Is it kind of a chance for everybody to catch their breath, a step away from the rigors and the wars on a night in, night out basis in Big 12 play, to get a chance to play another non-conference game since you had one canceled against A&M Corpus this year, and get a chance to measure yourself again against a team from another Power 5 league?
Yeah, we have a great opportunity to play Kentucky. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Kentucky, and our guys are up for the challenge. And it's a step away from a conference game. Might have a little more fun, but it's definitely going to be a great challenge for us, and we'll be up for it.
Okay. Hey, KT, appreciate you taking the time. Best of luck on this Saturday evening coming up against the Wildcats of Kentucky. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Longhorns Associate Head Coach KT Turner. Coming up, we're going to let you hear from one of the more unique members of Shaka Smart staff when we continue with Longhorn Weekly, presented by Pluckers, here on the Longhorn Network and the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield IMG College.